I don't know if it's still the case, but this fountain was originally fed by the lake at the top, under gravity feed, and then the water, you see spiraling from the top, would come down the valley, obviously in pipes or troughs or whatever, and then due to gravity be pushed down this end. Hi, very warm welcome to Dusty Shelf. I hope I find you well. Today you're here in Alton Towers, so join me as I take a walk around the ruins and a little walk around the gardens. Hi, welcome to Alton Towers. All I'm going to do, as I say, is I'm just going to take a stroll through the gardens and around the ruins. So let's start at the other end of the ruins and work our way back round. Well, I'm sitting just behind the towers, just off to the side. This is the area where the playground used to be. So there was a carousel here, I think there was a couple of slides and swings and things. It's probably back in the 1960s, 1970s, before Alton Towers as a whole got going. I'm just looking at the building. Now I'll just zoom in and you can see on this turret here there is a plaque. We'll go over there in a minute. That's to do with the Second World War. And then if I just pan across to where it says Hex on that tower there, now that's the entrance. It's actually a ride in there that goes into the towers and has a little bit of a spooky room at the end that turns upside down. But the queue line in there is actually inside the towers, and it was all restored at one point. It goes right down to the octarium at the end, and as I say, it was all restored and then all covered back up again to theme for the ride. So the roof's all in good order in there. Now that doorway, when I first came here, that was actually the entrance to the gift shop. But now, as I say, it's an entrance to the ride. Now there are pictures in books of billiard tables set up in there. But also, I'm just going to put this picture in now. I've got this hanging on the wall, and this is one of the Earl's, purchase or acquisition of the towers. Held a banquet, and it was in that hall that the banquet was held. Now I'm sure a few people are aware that Augustus Pugin played a large part in turning the towers into the Gothic masterpiece they are now. But the building just behind where it says Hex, that's the chapel. That's actually a Pugin designed chapel. The ceiling's still intact in there. I'll put a picture in. Absolutely beautiful. Been closed up for years. It was in that chapel, actually, if you remember back to the 1970s. That's where the model railway was. Certainly the railway was still in there up until probably the late 90s, to be fair. Unfortunately, I'm standing right next to a speaker playing too much music, so I'll take a long still of the plaque here, and maybe I'll overdub this bit later. I've moved away from the speaker down there. So yeah, the plaque was for the machine gun regiment that was stationed here at the towers during the Second World War. I'm just going to take a picture of these wonderful dog statues. These are actually original from the towers. Yeah, and as I say, just inside here, entrance to a ride now, but this was the gift shop way back in the day. So this is the long building I was just mentioned has been restored for Hex the ride. And you see all the windows have been blacked out, obviously for the theming of the ride. But right at the end there you see the octagonal building just before the greenhouse. That's the octagon. It's been restored, all the roof's been restored in there. And yeah, thankfully a bit of it has been restored, but yeah, apparently the rest of the towers aren't being looked after very well. Well, my last few visits to the towers, this whole area has been closed off. While Hex the ride is closed, this is the exit. Comes out into this area known as the Ladyship's Garden. Sort of enclosed green space within the towers. Just here, I did mention the Pugin Chapel. It's this building here. Fortunately, the towers are still all locked up. I think they are doing guided heritage tours around them now, but they're not on today, otherwise I would have done that. But you can see the stained glass in the end here. Let me just zoom in. But as I say, the ceiling inside, I do have some pictures of it. I'll put some pictures in. But yeah, quite fascinating to look at. again, just here you can see the Talbot family emblems, this dog. So yeah, the Talbot family, that is the same, I believe it's the same Talbot as the car manufacturer, and these are the similar sculptures to the ones that are out the front of the or to the side of the towers I showed you a minute ago. And here we've got the conservatory. This was restored a few years ago, and is now, I believe, is now watertight. So this, I believe, is the older part of Alton Towers. This is Alton Lodge. It was here on the site and was redeveloped into the towers by, I forget which earl it is, one of the earls, and as I say, with the help of Pugin, turned it into the Gothic masterpiece that it is now.
But for some reason, Harry can...
Just seeing the clawed feet on the bottom of this statue. Well, it's probably a fountain at one stage. Let's just do a sweep around. As I say, this is Her Ladyship's garden, past the chapel. A long building on this side. Back round to the octagon. And right at the end there, the greenhouse. You can see how the state of disrepair that the towers are in. You can see the roofs are missing. You can see just here, and yeah, sky shining through some of the windows. Parts of the tower were restored, and I mean up until probably about the late 90s, I think there was actually a coffee shop inside in the ballroom. I think is it called the ballroom? Yeah, I can't remember which room it is, but it's the one with the big Gothic window right at the front. A very iconic you know, silhouette. We'll go around and have a look at that in a minute. But yeah, there was a tea room in there. Now remember the fireplace in there and the coat of arms above it. But from what people have been saying when they've been on the tours around the towers, there's a lot of birds and animals getting into the towers, and yeah, it's a little bit of a mess inside. And yeah, sadly, I think it would be a shame if these got any worse than they actually are at the moment. And maybe it's time to protect them a little bit more. Look at the Gothic work on the tower at the top there. Right, well, quite a treat to come in here. As I say, for the last 2 years, when I've come into this this part, it's got a big gate across at the entrance, and you can't get in here at all. So, just repeating what I said a minute ago. So, if you came here back in well, any time from the 60s right the way through until probably about 1990, maybe 92, 93, you would have gone in this door here and turned to the right, and in the chapel here was the model railway. I certainly saw it back in the day. I remember it very well. I'm just looking at the glass here from if I zoom in, you can see how damaged it is inside. This is from the chapel, Pugin Chapel. You know, in all the years that I've been to the towers, I don't think I've ever been round this side. Let me just climb up these steps. Yeah, I don't think I've ever, well, I know I've never been this side of the wall, looking out over the lake. A lot of people think that the towers were stripped during the Second World War by the army, but I don't believe that was the case. After the war, it was sold to some businessmen, local businessmen, who formed a collective, bought the towers, and then asset stripped it completely. Anything they could remove was removed: wood, panelling, all the lead off the roof, obviously, and anything and everything. And they just left it in the state it's in here. And there it stood in its sort of ruined state for many, many years. And eventually the involvement of John Broome, who I believe sadly passed away last year, brought this into a theme park and brought the roller coasters here. And as they say, the rest is history. Now, I am actually working on a video. I've started it so many times, and it's a project that keeps getting put to one side about Battersea Power Station. So John Broome, once he'd got the towers up and running, I believe he sold the towers, and his next project was supposed to be the Battersea Power Station. So we bought that, and the plan was to put roller coasters and a theme park inside there. Never actually happened, and as we all know, stood empty and derelict for many, many years, much like the towers. And yeah, recently has been completely regenerated into a shopping centre and a housing complex. So yeah, I'd quite like to visit the power station again. Yeah, maybe do a follow-up video on about the history of John Broome. So as I say, all the years that I've been coming to the towers, I've been up on top of the towers many times, but I've not actually been on this wall and looked over into the moat below, and actually looked across from this direction at these wonderful gardens just here in front. 1920s, 1930s, they used to have carnival sort of fetes here, and boating on the lake. So as I say, all the years that I've been coming to the towers, I've been up on top of the towers many times, but I've not actually been on this wall and looked over into the moat below, and actually looked across from this direction at these wonderful gardens just here in front. 1920s, 1930s, they used to have carnival sort of fetes here, and boating on the lake. And this direction was just beginning to look out over the prop gardens, or proper if you like, and you can see the little statue right over the back there. The name escapes me right now, but I will put it in the caption. Each one of the statues do have names. I can't remember what that one is. I'd like to say Pagoda, but it's not. That's further round. Wonderful little tower here, look. And yeah, I can look out through at the gardens. Much better view here of the chapel at the side of the ruins. It's immensely peaceful and tranquil in here, and indeed the music helps. Hopefully I'm not capturing too much of that on the microphone, otherwise I'll get caught with copyright. But with the peace and the tranquility, you wouldn't believe that just the other side of that wall is one of Europe's largest theme parks, and today it's a capacity crowd. I mean, I could never seen so many cars coming in this morning. Now I've already made 2 videos walking around the gardens at Alton Towers, so a lot of this is going to be a bit of a repeat, but I do like to document them. Obviously every year things are changing, things are a little bit different, and by filming them, I wish I'd started doing this years ago. It's just documenting the towers, so yeah, join me as I walk around The other thing, of course, is if you do want to just come and look at the architecture in here, which I'm sure there's a lot of people would like to, it costs you an awful lot of money to get in the gate. I mean, on a normal day ticket, I think it's about £60 to come in, but obviously you're paying for all the rides and entertainment. And if you just want to have a wander around the gardens and look at the towers themselves, and obviously that cost is far too high. Right, so we're around the other side of the towers now. That's a little turret that I was just having a look at. And yeah, this was the wall I was just peering out through. As I say, all those years I've never actually been in that part of the towers. Absolutely fascinating. And just over here is the wall that I peered over, down to the moat in front of the towers. Right, and here we've got the iconic frontage of Alton Towers. These windows that you see here, I mentioned the banqueting hall, they're just the other side of those windows. It's one part that the roof was put back on and was in reasonable condition. Obviously the rest of it you can see pretty much ruins. Over by the chapel, the building on the side of the chapel is still in ruins, but yeah, this part in the middle here was in relatively good condition. You can see the bell tower on the top there. And you might be able to pick up the noise if I just pan across. Literally just here, there's the Smiler roller coaster, just a few feet away. Very, very unique location. Now right at the end here, it's all closed off again. I've mentioned this on the last two videos as well. This area, there used to be, well there is, I'd say it used to be, it's still there, a tunnel that led, you sort of walk down the hill where this corrugated iron is. There's a tunnelway that leads underneath the hillside, takes you all the way down, comes out behind Oblivion now, but obviously a very ancient tunnel that it's all brick built in that area. Well, I've made my way a little into the gardens. You can see the towers just there, and I'm going to head down this path, see where this takes me. There's signs here of a bygone era, so the towers today, obviously it's all about rides and entertainment, but go back 100 years or maybe a bit more and the towers were a pleasure garden and people used to come and promenade around these gardens. And you can see here these steps, not a soul uses these anymore, and the ones further up here, actually I'll go back to these ones because they show it a bit more. You know, you don't see anybody down here in the gardens. If I just show you these steps, look how worn they are. Showing back in the day, you know, there's an awful lot of people walking around these gardens. Yeah, sadly I've said before, they're not as well looked after as they used to be. For the few that do know me, they know that I've got an extremely bad ankle and I've picked probably the hardest route to walk along. Well, here we are, going in the heart of the gardens. Look at these steps down here. Again, all really worn. This is down to the lake and what they call the Pagoda fountain. Let's walk down and have a look at that. You know, this used to be so immaculate, and you can see it's just almost rewilding. Like I say, nobody comes down in the gardens. I mean, there's a few people, to be fair, there's a few people down here today, but that's because the parks are busy, you know. There's a lot of people here today, so I think people are choosing, rather than stand in a queue for a few hours, to come and have a look round, don't they? gardens. If you've ever travelled in the cable cars here at Alton Towers, you would have seen this from a different perspective. Obviously with the cables there just going overhead. Cable cars are closed at the moment, been closed for a couple of years. Something not right, they're waiting on parts or waiting on something to be delivered. It's beautiful. I don't know if it's still the case, but this fountain was originally fed by the lake at the top under gravity feed, and then the water keeps spiraling from the top. Yeah, would come down the valley, obviously in pipes or troughs or whatever, and then due to gravity be pushed out at this end. And just turning 180 degrees away from the fountain, over this side you can see another pond down the bottom where this has all been fenced off, but you can see how the undergrowth has really taken over. Years and years of neglect, but still somehow stunningly beautiful. Right, looking back up the valley towards the towers, if you pass the, obviously you can still see the fountain here, but just in the background I just make it out the entrance to the towers, which is the statue from the garden's architect. It says on there, he made the desert smile. This would have been the, I'm guessing the original driveway into the towers. You can see the gates at the end here. Let's walk down to those. Yeah, just in the distance there, I'll zoom in. You see the gate post? They would have been the entrance to the towers, and then you would have climbed up the hill here, back to the building itself. So a good 10-15 years ago, there was plans afoot to build a roller coaster down through here. So it would start up the far side by the towers and rattle down through the valley and up this side, where it would turn around and come back through and do it again. And you know, I love my roller coasters, as people know. I would love to have seen something like that built, but yeah, not at the expense of the gardens, unfortunately. So in some ways, glad it didn't get built. In other ways, I prefer to see, you know, these gardens being looked after a little better. Right, I'm going to walk up towards the conservatories now. See the old retaining walls. That is absolutely stunning. Another little water cascade here, right from the top of the hill, and right up there, running all the way down these steps, and then disappearing under the pathway and continuing down to the pool at the bottom. Parts of the more formalised garden. Can you imagine what this would have been like in its heyday? Look at the intricacy on the brickwork there. Little features like this. I don't know what that once was. A little statue and the laurel hedges. pretty iconic. Now if you look up any picture of Alton Towers from bygone year, you will see these in black and white, all these laurel hedges cut in a row. And just over the way, get a nice clear view of the Swiss cottage. Yeah, it was actually built by one of the earls for his harpist, blind harpist I believe, and yeah, it's said that the harpist would sit out on the balcony there and serenade the promenaders as they made their way into the gardens. I think I've shown this little folly before, just built into the hillside. Let's make our way up to the greenhouses. It's nice to actually see people in the gardens. I've been down here before and walked around for a couple of hours. You never see anybody. Look at the roof in there. I've shown this a couple of times before, but I'm going to show it again. Got the little pool at the bottom there, and yeah, reflecting in the pool. Beautiful domed roof. Just looking back over the formal gardens, and you see the Pagoda fountain over there in the distance. It says here throughout 2014 to 2018 over 1.9 million invested in the resort history and heritage. Time for a bit more spending, I think. Just at the top of the hill there, so I can zoom in on it, just behind the cherub, there's another one of the famous pieces of artwork from the towers. You see how it all kind of lines up as you look up the cascade here. This is the statue that I spoke about when we were down by the fountain. I'll come back to that in a moment. Let's just go and have a look down the gardens first. You see there in the distance the fountain. Let me zoom in. And These all used to be absolutely full of colour, still beautiful to look at, but yeah, back in the day when this was all looked after this time of year, absolutely amazing to look at. Let's make our way back round to the statue. That's not the word I was looking for. And you can see those iconic words on there. He made the desert smile. And as we head back into the theme park away from the gardens, this is the old gate lodge. I've shown this a couple of times on the videos. We walk through the gates underneath the walkway that's used more and more without the cable cars, and we come through to this side, and there you have that view of the towers in all their splendour. What this could have been only like back in the day when you arrived on a coach and come round the corner here without all these people. A magnificent building. I still think probably one of the best buildings we've got in the UK. You know, it's right up there with stately homes, but as I say, it's sadly in a very poor condition. That absolutely iconic view of the towers. Yeah, the roller coaster's going past. Right, just hiding in the trees here. This is another part of the gardens. Don't normally come down here, but this is known as the woodcutter's cottage. But back in the day, I believe this was the accommodation for the gardener that worked on the gardens. Right, let's keep walking down. I'm cutting through here. This is a pathway that should take us down by another lakeside and bring us out by Nemesis. Or actually, I don't know if that's it, or that was the old gardener's cottage. Not sure, one of the two. I'm sure somebody will correct me. Right, we're just following the stream along here. Again, if you've been on the cable car, this is the first part of the cable car that goes from the entrance to the intermediate station running above us, and you've got this lake on this side. And this lake over here. I remember this lake having huge fish in it once upon a time. Yeah, I can't see any fish in there at all. Lots of lily pads though. Well, back in 1840, this was a real highlight of the gardens. So this little cave that's made here actually contained, well, was home to a black bear. And yeah, it was caged up inside here for people to come and look at or see. Just having a look down the side here because there's light at that end. And yeah, this was the cage that they kept the black bear in. And it said when the bear died, he was stuffed and brought into the towers as an ornament. But I've read about this many times. This is the first time I've actually found it in the gardens. Right, and then from the bear cave, as it's called, you look across the valley and right on the far side there, right in the distance, you make out the Swiss cottage. Well, I couldn't remember the name of this earlier. This is the Prospect Tower. This was restored in, I think it was 2014, back to its former glory. Now it says here, I'm just going to read this while I'm taking some pictures of it. It said the Gothic Prospect Tower, completed around 1824 by Robert Abraham. It's a Grade 2 listed building. And it says it's an octagonal 3-tier masonry structure with Tudor arches set on a quatrefoil cluster shaft columns, which change material to cast iron columns in the 3rd tier, supporting a cast iron glazed decorative roof, as you can see right at the top there. Obviously, if you want to know more about some of these bits of architecture, there's a lot written on the internet. Well, did you ever ride on the miniature train here at Alton Towers? Well, this is the path it took. You can see the cutting here, and the station for the train, one end of the station the farthest away, would have been about here. And I'll put in the caption, the actual loco has turned up recently. It's on one of the preserved lines, and originally one track down here, and eventually 2 lines, and sadly all torn up in the name of progress. Right, one final look across the gardens here. So looking in the distance there, you can see the towers. If I just zoom in, just sitting there on the hillside. We've got the garden sort of cascading down the valley here. On just to the left, the Swiss cottage sitting on the hillside, and on the right over here is the formal gardens. You can see with the greenhouses there. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this one up there. If you enjoyed the video, please do give it a thumbs up, and why not check out the channel. There's plenty of things on there, all things that interest me, and hence why I'm here at Alton Towers looking at the heritage and not just riding the roller coasters. And if you can subscribe, you'd be doing me a really big favour. And with that, I'm going to leave this one there. So thank you ever so much for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.